and hopefully people will have a sense of empathy because of that. And so far, it's been really successful. We have a lot of white people crying after, which is great. I've never seen so many white people crying before. Like, it's amazing.
That's why I was like, that should be the new Rotten Tomatoes. It's like a little thing, white people crying skull. It's like
Exactly.
But you know what? I understand why so many people cry, and I think it's partly because of the empathy that you speak of. Your character plays an interesting role where she grows up in what many people we call the hood. You know, so you grew up in the hood, but she gets to go to a privileged school that is predominantly white.
Yeah.
Right, and she lives in this world where she code switches all the time. She's got her white friends, she's got her black friends. She lives between two worlds, and what happens is her friend who's black gets shot. Yeah. And now she's stuck choosing between these two worlds.
A lot of people are buzzing about Amandla Stenberg because of her recent role in The Acolyte, which honestly is a dumpster fire of a show. I reviewed the first 2 episodes when they aired, so you can check out that for my take, but seriously, watch it yourself if you want to suffer through it and form your own opinion. To me, the writing is garbage, but that's not the main point here. Everyone's been digging up clips from her interview with Trevor Noah, focusing on this one questionable clip that I've also used.
Because they even understand that they are not afforded childhood in the way that, their white counterparts are.
Right. Looking at the film, looking at the response that it's gotten, what would you say your greatest hope and success would have been beyond the white people crying? When people watch The Hate You Give, what do you want them to walk away with? Because I know everyone has a slightly different feeling.
Well, I mean, white people crying actually was the goal. It was the goal.
I had watched the full interview before because I wanted the full context. Even with that, her comments still rubbed me the wrong way. The movie she was promoting? Another one about black struggle and oppression, with white folks painted as the villains. So yeah, her lilting voice doesn't make it any better. It's still a bad look.
Right.
Man, you coming at me for my music, but you listen to this old stuff.
Old stuff? What? Gotta get up out of here with all that pockets of truth.
I got a boyfriend.
Yeah, I heard. It's all good.
Really?
We've been together our whole lives, so we got time.
My name is Star. 2 R's. Daddy made me that. Garden Heights. Mama and Daddy says our life is here because our people are here. We got Mr. Rubin's barbecue, Mr. Lewis's barbershop, and Daddy's store. World. So when I'm here, we don't go there. Williamson is another world. So when I'm here, I'm Star version 2.
Yo, those kids are lit.
Basically, Williamson Star doesn't give anyone a reason to call her ghetto, and I hate myself for doing it. Until the weekend comes around.
I get those goosebumps every time.
Out of the car.
Yo, stop.
Go back where he told you. Go, I'm not playing. Go back where. What did you do?
Everyone's talking about pledging allegiance, but Amandla and Trevor, both being biracial, act like acknowledging both sides is some kind of betrayal to the black community. Seriously, I can't believe this is even a discussion. And maybe this isn't completely the case with Trevor Noah, but I've seen multiple clips with him, more so with this view. Personally, heritage is a big deal for me. I embrace all parts of who I am, but I get that biracial folks like my husband, who's half Puerto Rican and half Italian Irish, often feel like they don't fully belong to either community. It also depends on where you grew up. From what I've seen, poor areas, especially places like Brooklyn, tend to be less accepting of outsiders unless you prove yourself. So if they see that you look different and it's more so black, Puerto Rican, that sphere, and you're like white or Chinese, they don't fuck with you unless you prove that you're hard like them. It just is how it is. Now, like I said, that might not be the case with everywhere, but it was with Brooklyn. Amandla Stenberg doesn't seem like she grew up in those tough places. I could be wrong, but from what I know, she hasn't faced any real struggle. It's always hilarious when these celebrities act like they can relate to their community members while living completely different lives than them. It's always the biracial half-black ones, like Jordan Peele, who go out of their way to prove how black they are. They usually do this by starring in or making films that often focus on black people struggling and white people being the villains, trying to show how much they're down with the black folks by acting like they've completely cut ties with their white side. And you know what the hilarious thing often is that you find? It's that these people often have white partners. Ain't that funny? To me, this is a form of self-hate. A lot of these half-black individuals will get a lot of shit from members of their black side, and it's so funny how they bend over backwards to please these people who are less tolerant of them. To do that, they feel as though they have to completely hate the other side of who they are instead of accepting the beauty of both sides. And the flip side is true as well. Then you have articles like The Mary Sue claiming that racist trolls cry over Amandla Stenberg's 5-year-old comment. First of all, that's just brain dead. Aren't these the same people who constantly drag up out of context comments from 20 years ago? And how does pointing out that her comment was racist makes someone a racist. Like, imagine calling someone racist for pointing out that something is racist. If she had said the same thing about black people instead of specifically targeting white people, wouldn't there be an issue? I know some people won't get this, and I'm about to trigger a few, but imagine this. With all the racial tension in the country that specifically the media is fueling by showing black individuals targeting white individuals or looting stores in white communities, what if a bunch of white people came together and made a movie about this in the same vein as The Hate You Give? And in an interview, the white lead actress says, well, making black people cry was the goal, so you can get the empathy, of how the white people feel when this happens. How do you think that would have been received by everyone? How do you think the black community in America would have reacted to such a statement, even if it wasn't intended that way, especially with her laughing along with the white interviewer? How do you think the black community would have responded? Would they rush to her defense, arguing it was taken out of context and it happened 5 years ago? I doubt it. I can't predict the future, but I have a strong feeling if that were to happen, it would not go over very well, nor should it have. It was a very tasteless remark, particularly for someone who seems to frequently downplay her biracial identity. It's like those biracial Asian kids who emphasize their white side and feel ashamed for their Chinese heritage and they don't want to speak their language around their friends.
Well, I mean, white people crying actually was the goal.
Well,
We wanted to make sure that, those who, have been affected by the way in which the media misconstrues these events actually have a real sense of empathy and are able to place themselves into the shoes of our communities and understand that these are not just news events. These are happening to real people. They affect us in really deep and pervasive ways. And then in terms of how it affects people of color, we wanted this to be a space within which we could be ourselves and see ourselves represented and feel validated by that and maybe process some feelings that we don't ever have the opportunity to move through.
it's a powerful story. I think you've done all of those things and more. Thank you so much for being on the show.
If you're more embarrassed to accept one side of your heritage than the other, then that's a form of self-hate. If you're trying to straighten your hair because you think you look prettier because you're in a community that all have straight hair, that is a form of self-hate. If you were bleaching your skin to try and look lighter because of the Eurocentric beauty standards, as people call it, that is a form of self-hate. If you're black and you're constantly making jokes at black people's expense to fit in with your white friends, to make them laugh and to be one of them, that's a form of self-hate. If you're white and you're constantly making jokes insulting white people so that you can fit in with the black community or show them that you're an ally or that you like them and you're not one of the bad whites, that's a form of self-hate. If you're always focusing on consuming and creating stories about black people struggling and always being oppressed, that is a form of self-hate. Celebrities who are biracial or black, flaunting their millions in celebrity status, often take on roles to prove themselves to the part of their community that might not have fully embraced them growing up. They star in films about the black struggle, a struggle they've never personally experienced. Then they head back to their luxury homes and privileged lives, leaving behind the community they just represented. They pat themselves on the back, having cashed in on portraying the black struggle, all while living a life that contradicts the very stories they tell. Being black or half black doesn't automatically mean they've endured hardship, which isn't just a burden for those with darker skin. It's so telling. Yet, if any of these elites or celebrities were to have one of these people from their community that are in a bad way come to their house and ask for help, they would send them away so fucking quickly. If you ask them to do things, these people, when the cameras are not rolling and if they're not getting paid for it, they wouldn't do it. If you ask them to go into the ghettos of Brooklyn and pay some of those people's bills, they wouldn't be caught dead going there. As a matter of fact, they would be so freaking paranoid and in fear for their lives. Tell them to go down by Flatbush or Nostrand and give to the black community down there and see how fast they roll through that neighborhood and they're like, nah, I'm good. A lot of these people are freaking hypocrites. And when someone calls it out as problematic, no matter who they are, suddenly it's labeled as racist. This includes black community members and other minorities who dare to tell these celebs, hey, you don't represent all of us and this ain't it. That just shows how much these folks live in a bubble with a narrow perspective shaped by what they imagine a white straight male thinks. That is a form of supremacy, by the way. If you're dismissing every critical reaction to low quality shows or movies as just noise from straight white males or incels, you're basically saying no one else's opinion who isn't white hetero male matters. That's both sexist and racist. You're unwittingly boosting the notion that only white male voices are significant, making such claims stupidly myopic.
Today, Garden Heights is reeling after the shooting of a 17-year-old black teenager by a white police officer.
The movie that she was being interviewed for, which was showcasing police brutality, specifically against black people, probably never mentions police brutality towards white people as well. It's almost like they want to keep black people in fear. But those other situations of police brutality in general, they always get brushed under the rug. White police on white people, black police on white civilians, black police on black civilians, Latino police on white civilians. The media likes to drum up dissent, pretending as though they love diversity when they are so against it because they're constantly pitting people against each other by only highlighting the cases where a white cop happens to have a very bad altercation with a black individual. The media is very disingenuous, and most people should know that by now, especially given the very article that we're reading and how often they do the same things that they accuse these supposed trolls of doing. That being said, it was Amandla's comments that were the issue. While I can't speak for everyone who viewed the clip or their awareness of its context, it's very clear that even with full context, her statements are still problematic. Had such remarks been directed at black people under similar circumstances, the backlash would have been justifiable and very severe. Again, refer to that hypothetical scenario that I provided a while back where white people are being targeted by black people, or even better yet, Asian people are being targeted by black people, which is something that happens a lot, especially in New York, and I have seen it, I grew up with it, I know it firsthand. Now, this isn't to say all black people, but there is a huge sector of the black community that are very anti-Asian. Similarly, it's important to acknowledge that a significant portion of the Asian community, especially in their native countries, exhibit strong anti-black attitudes as well.
A sick community across the Bay Area have dramatically increased since the start of the pandemic. Now, 6 men are being charged with hate crimes after San Jose police arrested them in connection with at least 170 incidents in the past year. ABC 7 News reporter Dustin Dorsey explains how the community came together to help catch the suspects.
Violence, robberies, purse snatchings, and attacks on the Asian American community like this video shows in San Jose, the highest it's been in the past 2 years across the Bay Area. Leaders don't want residents in San Jose, especially in Little Saigon, to be fearful this holiday season and beyond.
While we live in different places and our families came from different countries, we take your safety seriously, and we take it personally.
Backing up their words, San Jose police made 6 arrests in September after an extensive investigation. These men have been linked to at least 170 incidents of robbery, theft, and burglary that targeted members of the AAPI community. Police say these men specifically targeted more than 100 women because they were Asian American.
这个我爸爸。我说骂，你说我说什么？这叫骂人儿。怎么？行，哎，爸爸，啊，你干嘛去了？出来溜溜。不是，干嘛出去溜啊？在家里还有法待吗？啊，干嘛没法待？怎么了？你看看那头发，是中国人头发？他们那儿就是脏辫吗？
비밀? 남자친구 생겼어. 다미.
은지야, 이건 아니잖아. 촬영한다면서. 피디님, 우리 잠시만 우리끼리 좀 얘기 좀 하. 야, 너 있잖아. 너 아빠 이거 알면 큰일 나.
스타일이 되게 멋있잖아.
너 엄마를 어떻게 이렇게 속일 수 있니? 어?
맞아, 사랑스러워.
진짜. 다미가 외국 사람이라서 내가 화난 것도 아니고요. 한국말이 서툴러서 그렇게 화난 것도 아니에요. 응?
뭐 외국 사람이라서 하는 거 아니야?
뭐 너네 둘이 내가 이렇게 처음에 뭐 다미 소개했을 때 엄마가 뭐 외국인이라서 낯설기도 하고 놀라기도 좀 하고 그랬지. 근데 뭐 잠시 이렇게 다미 만나보니까 친절하기도 하고 사람은 좋은 것 같아.
뭘까요? 미안해.
그러면 너 둘이
나 너무 처음 봤어.
처음
처음 뵀어.
야,
내가 한 거 아니야. 피디님이 시켰어.
야 김은지.
Generally speaking, while everyone is an individual, there are cultural stigmas attached to different ethnic groups rooted in a very primitive form of human tribalism. So what's likely to happen next is that people will claim that the Acolyte isn't performing well because of racism. I bet that's the next angle they're gonna go with. And it's already begun, because it can't possibly be because of the really bad writing and constant contradictions in the show so far. Newsflash, the black community and members of the queer community are aware of what Disney and a lot of these other studios are doing with using the tokenization of the black and queer community to shield themselves against the criticism that they know they're going to get because of the low quality of the production that they're putting out. Bro, nobody hates the Acolyte lead star because she's seen as a minority. community. I'm sure there are people out there like that, but they're the fringe radical and actually racist people. What they hate is the constant tokenization of people of this demographic, and the heavy focus on the way people look and who they sleep with rather than the substance of the actual story. They think that casting people who just so happen to fit within their preferred demographics is all that's needed for a show to do well. It isn't. I don't know when these people are gonna realize it and get it through their fat heads, and how much more money they have to lose before they realize that.